We're here with Tim Head, Executive Director of the Faith and Freedom Coalition. Tim, what do you think evangelicals made of JD Vance's speech this morning at your organization's prayer breakfast?
Well, you know, he hit all the kind of hot button issues, I think, for faith voters in America. And you know, the other nice thing I think that people really saw firsthand is it was just extemporaneous. There were no notes. He just kind of spoke off the cuff. Talked certainly on some policy issues, but really probably more spent time talking about his childhood, growing up with his grandmother, some of his own faith journey, and you know, as a teenager, and then once he got married and started having children, some perspectives changed a little bit. And I think that telling that sort of earnest personal story really connects with the group of 800 to 1,000 people that we had here today. It's fun for people to see that in person, not just kind of on a TV screen.
Yeah, he was very earnest. He talked about actually being an atheist at one point when he was at Yale Law School at Yale. Excuse me. What do you think how do you think that informed his views on politics? That period he spent, I guess, as a non-believer.
Well, one of the reasons why I find that encouraging, strangely encouraging maybe, is that he clearly has grappled with hard questions of life, and I think that probably a good number of people in America and probably around the world. There's just kind of been a momentum maybe of life, maybe their parents, their grandparents, maybe a community they're from. But all of us really have to have a bit of a personal reckoning whenever usually hard things happen. Clearly some of those hard things that happened to him, teenage, early adulthood, as he honestly grappled, he reached some conclusions, but then a little bit later he kind of remedied, in my opinion, some of those conclusions. So I think it's a very sincere, authentic story, not just sort of this plastic, rehearsed one.
Right. What do you make of the pick of Vance? He's going to replace Mike Pence on the ticket. Pence was seen when he was picked as a nod to the evangelical community, evangelical voters. Do you think Vance going to fill a similar role? What are your thoughts on him as a vice presidential candidate?
Well, I mean, clearly, Mike Pence, was a very known commodity, I would say, in a lot of American politics, including in the faith community. And so, from that perspective, especially with Trump being a known public figure, but not in a political context, it was helpful for him to have kind of a stabilizing force, if you will, a known commodity to his somewhat unknown commodity. But now he obviously has been in the White House, has delivered profoundly on a lot of issues that the faith community cares about. And so I think he has more sort of credibility or street cred, if you will, which also allows him to maybe pick a little bit of a lesser known commodity like Vance. But, like we just talked about, I think that a lot of people are going to recognize a huge part of his story includes that kind of infusion of faith.
Yeah. Obviously, Trump had a falling out with Pence. And people have said that Trump is not always very good at being, I guess, a team player, delegating things to people below him. How do you think he's going to work with Vance? Has he moved beyond that, become more of a team player in your mind? Trump, that is?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think there's probably layers to that, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that he knows what it is to be president. He knows what it is to work with a vice president and other people in his cabinet, for that matter. I think there also has been a bit of an evolution, probably in the last 3 or 4 years since he's been out of office, since Trump has been out of office, recognizing his need for other people, probably. But I think the other piece to this that's really interesting, and of course none of us celebrate what happened last weekend in the shop, but there's a very kind of like sobering impact that has on people, and frequently that sort of interaction with our own mortality can also bring maybe a little bit, can soften some rough edges, maybe, if you will. So I think that we may actually see a different Donald Trump, maybe even tonight in his remarks here at the convention.
So not just in the last 3 or 4 years, but even since Saturday, you think?
I think literally in the last 5 or 6 days, like I said, I mean, there is no way that you have an experience like that and don't really kind of strip a lot of things in life down to the studs, if you will, and kind of like take account of a lot of what is the most important in life. And clearly family is going to be a part of that question, or part of the answer to that question. But I think that he's going to probably be a slightly different person, even that most of Americans and global political watchers have ever seen.
There's been a lot of talk about unity this week, unity within the Republican Party, I guess within the country as well. One thing the party is not totally unified is the topic of abortion. They've been kind of wrestling with this since the fall. of Roe v. Wade. Donald Trump has taken more of like a the states can vote on it type of stance. A little bit of back and forth there. What is your organization's stance on the issue of abortion? How that should be handled going forward?
Yeah, great question. So, our position at Faith and Freedom Coalition has always been that we're for policies, any policy that saves a baby. So if it saves 1, 10, a million, or 10 million, we are wanting to move in that direction. And so we recognize that there probably are some imperfections to the Dobbs decision, but we also think it definitely moved the needle in the right direction. And we've seen 25 now states move in wonderful directions. Of course, we've also seen another 8 or 10 that have moved, I think, in pretty detrimental directions. And so we're going to reinforce the 25 states that have done strong, have taken strong stances. Another 8 to 10, we believe, are pretty strategic, kind of a next phase, if you will. And then, some of the really pretty abhorrent procedures like we've seen coming out of Massachusetts. The governor, even in the last several days in Massachusetts, using public funds to advertise and sort of like recruit people into some of these abortive processes. And so frankly, the fight continues, and we would love to see a federal solution eventually, but that's probably not in the cards in the immediate future.
And last question, how do you think the evangelical community has reacted to that assassination attempt? We heard a lot of big-name speakers this morning, Mike Johnson, Ben Carson, Kerry Lake, and we heard the word miracle more than one time. How has that been?
Well, first of all, I think you're right. The kind of faith-based community has certainly, to probably nobody's surprise, has seen a lot of pretty supernatural or kind of attributed a lot of supernatural intervention there. But to be honest with you, one of the interesting things for me is I found a lot of people that don't necessarily come, at least obviously or publicly from a faith perspective. It's just a lot. It's very difficult for people to ignore. Not only for an individual person's life, but probably for the well-being of the entire country. We were literally just kind of like a matter of millimeters, just a slight angle change, and the trajectory of this entire American kind of body politic right now would be incredibly different and probably really destructive right now. And so I think a lot of people kind of saw pretty supernatural intervention there.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Tim.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. That's Tim Head with the Faith and Freedom Coalition. I'm Haston Willis in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for the Washington Examiner.